Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of Coffee with John. Looking forward to talking with Mark Rampolla. Mark, it's great to connect with you, and I appreciate you reaching out to me. I'm excited to talk with you. Quick bio on you. You built ZICO Water. You were the founder. Gets acquired by Coca-Cola. Long story short, you buy it back. You're also co-founder of Ground Force Capital, where you are investing in a wide variety of companies. We'll get into that as well. You're also the author of High Hanging Fruit and the national bestseller, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Freedom. We'll get into that as well. But where I really want to start is if somebody were to go to your website, markrampolla.co, one of the things that they will see in your bio is the following. That you're on a mission to help founders upgrade their inner operating system. So that's where I want to start, because I'm a big believer in that as well, that it all starts from within. So, but what does that mean to you?
Well, first of all, John, thanks for having me. I'm a fan of yours. I've listened to your shows, and it's one of the reasons why I did want to reach out, because I do think we're aligned. I love how deep you go, and I like to, communicate with people that I sort of share that alignment with.
Yeah.
So
Thanks.
what that means to me is, I think what I came to see myself is that I had this, quote unquote, great success, right? Started ZICO, ran it for 9 years, sold it to Coca-Cola, and, quote unquote, won, right? Millions in the bank, success, freedom to do kind of whatever I want. And I went on to become an active angel investor and then started Ground Force Capital. And so I talked to probably 1,000, some form or fashion as a firm. We connect with probably 1,000 entrepreneurs a year. So I've probably connected one form or fashion to 10,000 entrepreneurs in the last decade or so. And the thing I consistently, the beauty of that is I get to see a lot of pattern recognition. And what I have found is that my own journey as a founder and operator, as well as dealing with, and I've backed 40 plus and, backed 100 and been on 40 plus sports. There's lots available, and most people talk about the business challenges, market, business, all the details that are absolutely necessary, but are not alone sufficient for success. Success not only being in business, but in life. And so what I came to conclude myself is, and I've seen again and again, is it's an inside job. Yeah. The difference on whether somebody has a successful life, however they choose to measure that, is do they do the inner work?
Yeah.
And so that's where I've found the most challenge, but also the most joy, is doing that myself and in helping entrepreneurs do that work, because entrepreneurship is a beautiful, beautiful learning place to learn about yourself.
Yeah.
Not just the market, right?
So a couple of things on that. One, at a later time, I want to touch you about a business I'm launching in 90 days called Life Plan, which does that. We haven't talked about that. I have a business partner, and we spent the last year plus building a life plan that is getting really, really positive reviews. It's in editors and publishing right now. We'll talk more about that, but because I believe the same. I believe the same thing. Yes, as my business partner for that company. But what I want to talk about is pattern recognition of founders, and how many of them have pain at a young age, have been through turmoil at a young age. I'm a big believer. We teach our pain in a way, and you can look at story after story. Elon Musk, for example, whether, love him or hate him, his story is filled with a lot of pain that may or may not, I'm not a psychiatrist, given him an edge to succeed. You hear story after story, I could name dozens of people who, lost a parent at a very young age, and it gave them, it like ignited something in them. My mom was ill from a young age. I saw a lot of death in my family. It ignited something in me. I had to grow up faster, younger. How many of your have you seen that in your kind of recognition as you're kind of looking at some of these founders?
Look, it's a great question, John. It's there. It's there. I haven't thought about, is that a real, let's say, screening criteria, right? What I would say is, yes, I've seen a lot of successful, founders, leaders that have gone through some clearly, tumultuous, difficult times. I'm absolutely with you on we lead with our pain, I think is the way you said it. Another way I would say it is we listen through our wounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
things affect us. What I would say is I don't believe it's a necessary requirement.
No, nor do I.
Right?
Nor do I. Yeah.
And what I see more often than not is that where entrepreneurs get stuck, get trapped, is when they're not aware of those unconscious things that are motivating, right? And so it's when we step in now. I did some early angel investing, our earlier funds, we did some early investing. That's a different game. We play now at growth. So we're dealing with companies that are 20 to 100 million, trying to help them get from 100 to a billion. And at that stage, what's fascinating is you're no longer dealing with just a founder. That founder, even if they have the title of CEO, they need to operate like a CEO.
Yeah.
And inevitably, that transition is brutal. And so interesting, you talked about early life. One catchphrase I have for this is it's founder puberty.
Yeah.
Right. It's like this awkward stage and if you haven't looked inside and you don't have to go through 7 years of psychoanalysis, although I've done that. You don't have to go crazy deep on stuff. You got to at least spend a little bit of time to understand, oh man, I got these blind spots. I got these patterns. I got these things that stuck up because of what I learned as a child, because of what I went through earlier in my career, because they show up sooner or later and they inevitably show up on the game, the field of entrepreneurship during this growth stage,
Yeah. I remember, well, I'm curious and I have a thought. So when is the realization from your experience, this shift of awareness for people? Is it because, is it in a proactive way? Is it in a reactive way where they say, hey, things aren't working. I can't influence like I used to. I can't, connect with people like I used to internally, my managers. Like what is that? Because I'm curious what your research shows.
Yeah, there I'm aligned with you. From my experience, myself, and what I've seen in others is there's always some catalyst. Now, whether or not it's adopted and that change is made is depending on the individual. But life always gives us another chance to, kind of face whatever our challenges are. But where I see it show up is you see the results in the business. And so maybe growth is slowed. Maybe there's high turnover. Maybe a product line that worked in the past isn't working. Maybe innovation that worked in the past isn't working. Maybe they expand from one channel to another and it doesn't work, from one country or region there's something where the business starts to have some challenges. And there's a tried and true methods to look at the business. Okay, size of prize and market and team and routines and processes. Those aren't easy, but they're known. Yeah. What I find is what most people don't do is look in the mirror. And I've come to believe that more often than not, those challenges of growth, those challenges of breakthrough are less in the P&L, less in the balance sheet, and more in the mirror.
Yeah.
And so what I try to do is help entrepreneurs, leaders, founders, when they're in that bridge, they might have the title of CEO, to, along with looking at everything in their business, look at themselves.
Yeah.
How they turn up. We've got a methodology for doing this, right? On self-evaluation, on 360 evaluation. And you and I talked a little bit about this. I'm working on some tools to really enable that even more so, to help entrepreneurs say, wait a second, how have I co-created this, right? Because we tend to look outside. we're blaming others, we're blaming the world, but we also blame ourselves.
Yeah.
We're the worst at this, right? Versus getting curious. Interesting. How have I co-created this? And how did what served me in the past might not be serving me going forward?
Yeah. Yeah. I liked your, we listen through our wounds. It's, a lot of times CEOs or leaders for that matter, sometimes don't realize that their whisper can be heard as a scream, depending on what their personality is. It's interesting. I will go into companies and, a lot of times, sometimes I'll get brought in by, the CEO, a founder, et cetera. And they'll ask me to, talk to people within the company. And to your point, they are usually the problem. And, you have to report back. I'm just, for the sake of discussion, hey, the problem is you. And like one example sticks in my head where, they think you're a screamer, but that person may not have screamed for 2 years, but it lives within the walls. It lives in the paperwork. And I think once you get the brand of being an asshole, I don't know another way to put it, then people begin to fear you. And it's just kind of downhill from there to get the potential out of everyone. I read a book about 25 plus years ago by Gary Zukav. I'm just reminded of it as we're talking, called The Seat of the Soul. I'm not sure if you read it, but I love that you're drinking ZICO while, like a built-in promo.
Is that Seat of the Soul?
Yeah, it's called Seat of the Soul. And one of the things Gary talks about in his book is that, and I may be getting some of this wrong, but the gist is correct, that the ideal human is when the personality ends and the soul begins, and you can't tell. And you can't tell. And I remember reading that thinking, I'm out of alignment. I got some work to do. And so how many of the people that you encounter would say that, that they have an easy transition from personality to their soul?
Ooh, wow, John. That's a good one. Look, you and I are very aligned on the way of thinking about things. And I also understand how some of this stuff seems unapproachable to many people on how, like one of the things I keep coming back to is, okay, yeah, I can answer that and say, yes, I think a lot of people are out of alignment. Now what? Yeah. So what I am really obsessed with is helping entrepreneurs figure out very simple hows. And I'll give you 2 examples that come to mind. Take as a given, we're all somewhat out of alignment, right? That's a given.
Yeah.
It's easy to say, well, is that
I mean, I'm not saying I'm in full alignment. I'm just here asking questions.
That's right. But here's 2 little tricks that I offer people. One is become a feedback junkie. So before, yes, go hire John, because we all need an outside perspective, right? And sometimes the team needs to hear from somebody on the outside, and ask for feedback. And I find very few leaders really do this because it's tough. You're vulnerable. It's risky, and you got to learn to take it. And so I encourage people, check in constantly with your team. A couple of little phrases. How'd I do? How'd you see me show up? Is there anything I could do? How could I be even more powerful for you? So what we do within Ground Force is, after almost every meeting, I'll get out of a meeting and I'm in with a 25-year-old, I'm with my partner, whoever it is, and just check in. Any feedback from me? And we've done it enough, but it takes time for people to know you really want to hear it. So it takes some listening skills, it takes some work, but it also takes making some mistakes. Oh, shoot, I got reactive. Can I check in with you? I said I wanted feedback and then I shut down. Can I check in with you again, right? It takes what it takes to get that. But when you develop that, all of a sudden, man, I get so much feedback. I don't always like it, but I love it. And so that's an easy little trick. The other thing that occurs to me is, this idea of alignment, getting closer to alignment, can be as simple as, I use one of energy up, which is how do I, I have a couple meetings. I've got a schedule, my schedule booked for this week. Check in on every meeting, and at the beginning of the week, and I say energy up, energy down, or neutral. That's it. Only 3 responses. And if it's an energy down, it's just honest, right? That meeting I have with so and so, oh man, like I don't want to be in it. I don't want to be on it. That's out of alignment. That's it. It can be that simple. And can I cancel it? Or can I renegotiate the terms to get back into alignment? I find that those littlest things become ways little by little over time to get more energy and back into alignment, because I found it's hard to get like these big spiritual things right. But when you can get the little things right, you can actually build to that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. As you're talking, I like those thoughts. It's funny. I can read a book and like not remember what I read, and then 10 years later it kind of pops up or like it just
right.
So. But as you're talking, I'm reminded of another book that I read, I think 30 years ago. I think it was The 1 Minute Manager by Ken Blanchard.
Yes.
And so I want to talk about a leader, because a leader's got a tough job. They've got to hold the line. I've always subscribed to that you can be nice but firm. And one of the things that Ken Blanchard wrote about was the difference of being nice and tough versus tough and nice. And how being nice and then tough can actually get you in more trouble than being tough and nice.
Yeah.
And so as leaders, we need to lead. We need to hold the bar high. We need to set a standard. You've mentioned, having the right intent and the right tone, getting people to their potential, getting feedback, giving feedback. Everybody's different as far as how they take feedback. How does a leader lead today? How does an entrepreneur be an entrepreneur, get everyone to their next level of potential, still being in alignment with themselves, but also a conscious capitalist, really?
Oh, boy. Well, great question again, John. So, look, I see, first of all, I think I'll own that for much of my life, I did have this sort of a lot of shoulds, the way a leader should be, the way a human should be. And I've decided to stop shoulding on myself so much.
Yeah.
And so that being said, I have found that, consciousness isn't about right or wrong in my lens. It's about awareness.
Yeah.
Am I aware of reality? Am I seeing reality as it is? And am I understanding where my biases come in and affect me? And so to your point, I think what that means for most leaders, entrepreneurs, and others is check in with yourself. Are you being honest with yourself? What do you really think and feel? And this is where I find a lot of people get lost is they think as a manager and leader, there's no place for emotion in business. There's no place for emotion. Yeah, good luck. We're humans, right? We have them.
We're in the business of managing emotions, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you're aware of them, they become powerful. And so one of the things I encourage entrepreneurs, leaders to do, that I work with is, hey, relax. Like, you're not perfect. You're not going to be perfect, but you can be the best you can be. And so test and learn, right? And so forget trying to be perfect and show up in a certain way all the time. Show up as best you can, ask for feedback, and try to create a space with the people you work with most. That is, look, I want to test and learn. So one of and there's a great book actually that I love in this realm. It's called The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. That's a real kind of how to set up an organization that is more conscious, not about woo-woo consciousness, about waking up and seeing reality consciousness.
Yeah.
And one of the tricks is this idea of test and learn. It is about getting feedback, but it's also about not being attached to being right, while also owning we have opinions, we have biases, we have views. So what I encourage and what I try to practice is, look, I'm going to show up and give you what I have. I think that's a bad idea. I think this is a good idea. I think I have this question, I have that question, but I'm not attached to being right. Or I can actually see I'm attached to being right, and I'm open to be convinced otherwise, right? Yeah. So it takes a lot of this expectation out of the room, and allows people to be both human and leaders, right? It's challenging. It starts with an inner circle, but I find that most people are trying to be John or Ken Blanchett or Elon Musk or something like that, versus like, the more I've just tried to be Mark.
Yeah. Just be yourself.
As I am, as human as I am. Yeah. I can tell you what, I'm getting better results with a hell of a lot more ease.
Yeah.
Because I'm not stressed. I'm not pretending. It takes less effort.
Yeah. I'll tell you one of the things that on that I'll share this is I've never been the smartest person in the room, but there's a couple of things that I know I am really good at, and I've managed to kind of make a business actually out of it, my coaching business. And it's led me to success in other ways. I pointed out not to impress or like say anything about myself like this, but to just kind of maybe ignite something in other people.
Yeah.
I because it took me a long time to figure it out that really I'm a great listener. And I've kind of turned my listening skills into a profession to be a professional listener. And so and I think a lot of times when you listen, you become a little bit more of an observer and you get a feel. And because I'm a listener, I then ask a lot of questions because I've realized I learn through listening. And I can ask questions to find gaps in things and things that people aren't thinking about. And so that's why, I've been able to grow my coaching business and other businesses. And I think a lot of times, again, I'm not saying this to impress, but to impress upon, I think a lot of times leaders ask for feedback, but they don't listen the way they should.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's not just listening to the feedback, it's listening to just the room speak, because if you listen to people speak, you will hear things that there are gaps and things that are missing. And those typically can come back to you to fix and figure out what's wrong. And so I think sitting back and just listening is such a skill set. And so for people who are listening to this thinking like, I'm a really good listener, like I never like to go first when I'm in a boardroom. Like if I sit on a board, I don't like being the first one to speak. I like to sit back and listen because my skill set is kind of merging and summarizing things together. And so I think it's important also for people to understand, I'm kind of backing into this, how you learn and what your talents are, because it's not so obvious. Schools don't teach you that you're a good listener. They teach you to memorize and to pass this test and things of that nature. Or and so, how do you encourage when you're in your world and you're funding companies and you're doing everything you're doing, how do you because the inside job, how do you inspire people to figure out how they learn?
Yeah. So a couple things come up on that. I'll answer that or comment on that, but I love what you said. And there's two things that come up for me around that. One is I have a term for that, figuring out what you're great at. Stole this from a number of people, zone of genius.
Yeah.
I think when a leader can own, they can't be everything. It's impossible. And what do you really lean into? And it might be listening, it might be speaking, it might be marketing, it might be sales, it might be finance, it might be innovation, it might be inspire. It doesn't matter.
Right.
You know it and you double down on your strengths, you get way better results than trying to build out your weaknesses. And the beauty of that is then you also can build complementary skill sets where other people step into their zone.
Right.
I've seen leaders that are not every leader, we work with or back is amazing at selling or inspiration or commercial stuff at all. Some of them are operational whizzes or financial whizzes, but they surround themselves with others. That's the first thing. The second thing I'd say is listening is a skill we can all learn and get better at. And I have no doubt from everything I've read about you and listened to you, John, you are an expert at that. So maybe that was preternatural for you. But what I would offer to any leader is assume you're not very good at it. Just assume that. And ask that question, how do you learn? And how do you show up? How do you repeat things? And there's no better way to look than real time in your life for data. And so if you can ask the question with curiosity, I would even say love, not criticism.
Yeah.
How might I not be a great listener? And observe yourself. And this is where I find most people have not developed the capacity to separate themselves just a little bit from their actions. And I know you're a big meditator. Meditation is one way to do that. Journaling is another. But I also encourage leaders to just practice silence.
Yeah.
So pause before you're speaking, even just once in a meeting, and pay attention to yourself. Because typically what comes up is like, oh my God, I have to be the one that speaks. I can't stand it until somebody speaks. They're going to say something on. That internal discontent is what leads most people to speak versus listening. And you can retrain yourself on these, but I am with you on that is a freaking power skill.
Yeah.
To be able to slow down and listen. You start to observe patterns, things start to open up. So on the learning, I think it's self-observation and it's curiosity with love and compassion. And so I encourage leaders, hey, check in. How do you learn when you faced some difficult challenge in the past? What did you do?
Yeah.
Well, we all have you know what? Actually, I checked in with people I really trusted and I got some feedback. Okay. I journal, I meditate, whatever you used in the past, there's usually some way that you figure out how to learn that you can use that, in these new circumstances going forward, because that doesn't change for us, right? I'm an ADHD guy. I think you've shared that you've got you struggle with dyslexia.
Yeah.
Right. It's like those things don't change. So I can't absorb the kind of information that my team that's all investment bankers and private equity can absorb.
Correct.
So I build my life around that.
Yeah.
Amen. That short I review, I need them in advance so I can absorb. Like when you know how you learn, then you can adapt in these situations.
Yeah, I'm the same way. All right, let's talk about your book, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Freedom, 7 Steps to Living Beyond Limits. Okay, so what is the reader going to get from the book? Was any of your ZICO journey of selling and then rebuying the company inspired to write this book? Like what are people going to get from it? Yeah.
Look, the backstory is mainly, I bought into the same myth I think a lot of entrepreneurs do and a lot of leaders do in general. Find a great idea, decide your career path, go all in for a decade plus, make a pile of money, scale business or sell a business, and then you won, right? You're free. Your life is good. Everything's great from there forward. And I think I kind of ticked all of those boxes, but got to a place where I wasn't feeling really satisfied. I wasn't feeling really happy with my life. I wasn't getting the kind of results I wanted to when I was building more businesses, including buying back ZICO. And I certainly didn't feel free. I felt trapped by all the same old patterns I had, the same old drives I had. And I was trying to figure out, how do I get to a place where I just feel both the success I want, the ability to build more, grow more, earn more, make more, but also build a richer, complete life from a place of freedom. And so I kind of went through a 7-year journey of myself of figuring out what was going to work for me and what I learned. So that's what I lay out for people. So I think what I hope to lay out for entrepreneurs or any leader is, first of all, you're not alone. It's tough. Right? You are in the weeds. You're running a business. You're trying to grow. We all have these ways that we're trapped. And the first way out of jail is to know you're in it. First way out of a hole is to stop digging. So to help just assess where you are, and then to help everyone chart the path for the life they want. Not your definition of success, not my definition of success, not their parents or their competitors or their investors even, or board members. Their own definition of success, know themselves deeply, and a lot of tools and techniques along the way that sort of bring the same rigor that we have in business to mindset, right? Because it's easy to say, have a growth mindset, be curious, listen, but how? So I wanted to guide entrepreneurs on the specific tools and techniques that work for me and that I've seen work with others on the how.
Love it. Talk to me about Ground Force Capital. You're partnering with companies to, grow their brand, their technologies, healthier future. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So the big vision is that we're in a world that's in the midst of disruption. Most of the food, beverage, beauty, consumer products industry was built post World War II and hasn't changed. Cheap calories delivered efficiently across the world. The health and wellness revolution is not going anywhere, and that's cascading into everything, particularly food, beverage, consumer products, beauty, et cetera. And so our goal is to help find, fund, and scale brands and businesses that are building the next generation of consumer products.
That's great.
And we think broadly those are going to be health and wellness. Broadly, they're going to have a sustainability or an impact consideration at least, but ultimately they're going to be driven by great leaders. And so we typically invest when companies are 20 to 100 million in revenue. They've gotten through some difficult challenges. They're in the game, but our goal is to bring everything we can. I've been a founder and exited. My partner did as well. We have a great group of advisors around us and a great team. Bring everything we can to support those leaders in this growth stage, because growth is hard.
Yeah.
It's easy to look at an entrepreneur and say, oh, you're at 50 million, you're at 20 million, you're 30. You already made it. You're successful. Meanwhile, they are looking at it saying, how did I get here? And is what I've done going to get me where I'm going? I'm scared. I'm nervous. Yeah. I don't know. Not sure I'm doing the right things. I get it. We've been there. And so we try to help that journey.
I love it. All right. Quick speed round. You ready, Mark?
Sure.
What class would you teach in college today?
Ooh, Psychology 101.
Okay, good. Book that's had the biggest impact on you?
I mentioned it recently, but I would say The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership.
If you could have coffee with anybody, living or dead, who would it be and why?
Boy. Two people, Winston Churchill and Mahatma Gandhi, together to see how they negotiated, battled, learned from each other.
Oh, that would be a good one. That'd be a good one. The number one skill set you need as an entrepreneur today?
Learn to see and accept reality as it is.
The biggest lesson you ever learned?
It's my life. Recognize how I'm influenced by so many other ways that I should live my life. Can I break free of that to live the life I want?
Best piece of advice you've ever received?
Do good work and the rest will take care of itself.
Last question. Finish this sentence. One thing every entrepreneur who's stuck in a job right now, but has a kind of job, a career, a business that they want to build, the very first thing they should do is?
Write down the story you're telling yourself. What is the fantasy?
It's great. Tell everybody where they can connect with you, buy your book, learn about your businesses, all that.
MarkRampolla.co for me personally. LinkedIn, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and groundforcecapital.com for Groundforce.
It's great. Mark, this was great. I enjoyed this talk. I think the through line of everything we talked about is consciousness, and everybody's level of consciousness is unique to them. And I think that's a lot of the stuff that you're echoing in your book and in your work that you're doing, and a lot of the companies that you work with. How do we all tap into our own consciousness and reality, and grow from there, from the inside out? This was great. I really enjoyed our talk. Congratulations on all your success and everything that you're doing. We'll have to have you back again in a few months and catch up some more. But this was great. Think Big community. We talk a lot about this show about just getting grounded and moving with intent. It's an inside job, like Mark was saying. And I'll end with something Gary Zukav told me, which I thought was, he didn't tell me, I read it in his book, but the ideal human, and I'm getting some of this right, is when the personality ends and the soul begins. So I think it's great. Mark, this was awesome. You can reach Mark again at groundforcecapital.com and Rappolla.co, and you can reach me at johndwoskin.com. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, John.